Okay,
Oh, we got it. We got it. Okay, we're back.
we're back for real. You
We're
can hear us.
back for real this time.
Let us know in chat if you're actually hearing us now.
I'm pretty sure they can hear us.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good to know. All
So,
right, so we have some news to drop on the stream. Won't do it all at once, but there's a lot of fun stuff in this stream today. Uh, I guess briefly, we're going to talk about, I guess just an overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have a sale over the long weekend. Over in Canada, we have Canada Day, and I know Americans, you guys are celebrating July 4th.
yeah.
So we'll be having a sale. More info about that later. Mateo, how about we give a update on the pro beta?
Sure. Yeah. So last night we sent out the pro beta. I think if you still want to participate in that, you're able to join. That's pretty exciting. We're going to be talking about some of those features in this stream as well. But the pro beta is all about farms, and like there's a lot of cool features that are coming out during the pro beta. So it's exciting to see. A couple of people have got it set up already, and we're getting our first bits of feedback too. So that's really exciting. So I definitely after the stream check it out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like really cool farm control software.
Yeah, so if you've got a print farm and you want more control over your printers, like send us a message. We'll get you set up on the pro
Yeah.
beta.
I know Machine Creators is in on the beta, and I don't know, have you set it up yet? It's gonna be, I'm curious to know.
Yeah, let us know.
It's definitely, yeah, so I guess on this eve of a long weekend, we're gonna be dropping some news about how Quinly is gonna be changing, and we'll be mainly focusing on kind of a more, I guess, more open future for Quinly and trying to get as much automation out there on 3D printers as possible. So, we're gonna be talking about Quinly. We're gonna be talking about tools like Octoprint and Clipper, and over this stream and the next couple streams, we'll also be talking about how to get automation onto any 3D printer, and what that means for what we're developing and how that works with stuff that's already out there.
Yeah, so as some of you may know, over the past few weeks, we've been really kind of looking at what our product is and how we're going to actually evolve over time. And we've been making a lot of kind of like future looking forward kind of. We've been putting together a roadmap for what we want to include in Quinly and what direction we want to take with all this. And we'll be covering that during the stream today too.
Yeah, so it'll be really awesome to hear your guys' feedback and ideas as we go through this. Like, this should definitely want more of a discussion, because the roadmap that we kind of have now is actually based entirely off of farms that we talk to, our own experience as a print farm, and all of these features and what gets built first is comes from you guys. So this stream will be a really good opportunity to talk about those things, and I think we'll also go through like why or how Quinly has developed more for automation and what other tools out there, kind of what you can get done using other tools, in comparison. So we'll be talking about a bunch of stuff that's out there.
And I guess briefly, quick news on kind of another aspect of what we're doing is on Sunday this weekend, we're going to be on a live stream with 3D Musketeers. They're a YouTube channel, and you might have seen them in our live streams and our Discord channel. And with Grant from 3D Musketeers, we'll be talking about Quinly Vision and Quinly, and we'll be talking probably about kind of everything to do with 3D printing, automated printing, running a print business, wherever the conversation takes us. It's kind of unscripted, fun stream, and it'll be on the 3D Musketeers channel this Sunday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with Grant again.
Yeah, he's a fun guy.
Yeah.
He had a shout out on his most recent video today.
Oh, really?
He shouted out.
I
3D
haven't
too.
seen it yet. That's cool.
Yeah, well, we sent him a 3D Prusa kit, Quinly for Proof
Yeah,
Kit. So
right.
he opened it.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna be fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, so look forward to that. And okay,
Shall
should
we get into it?
yeah, why don't we get
Yeah.
into it? So yeah, so I think to start off, everyone wants to get more out of their 3D printers. And what we'll be looking at today is what tools are out there. I think Octoprint, Clipper, and those kinds of things are very obvious.
Yeah.
And then we'll compare kind of where Quinly fits into that and what our goals with Quinly are. Um, so maybe we should start off with like who are those tools for? Like who is Octoprint for?
Yeah. So I think the thing about Octoprint is it's very customizable. So it's
Mm-hmm.
got a little bit of something for everyone. Um, and I think in that way it can do a lot of things, but it doesn't really specifically focus on any one particular use case. It gives you, a way to monitor your print, and then it just lets you to add plugins that may or may not interact well with each other. And it's kind of up to you to figure out how to set everything up and how to configure things. And if you want more than just um, like a simple installation, you're gonna have to get into like command line interfaces, coding, maybe developing your own stuff. Um, and for things like 3D print farms, that's not what you want to do. So
Yeah, I'd be curious to know from chat, like, I mean, I'm sure pretty much everyone's watching has used it. What you set it up for, what you were hoping to get out of it when or if you currently use it now, like why did you put Octoprint on your farm? What were the main features that were key for you? Um, and I think you're very right. Like it's a very good tool for um, bringing a lot of kind of tedious tasks around your printer into the browser. So
yeah.
things like having a bed mesh visualizer,
Mhm.
um, like a webcam stream so you can check on your printer. This is stuff that you would have to do physically in person normally, but
So
now
like
you can
with
do
the
it
LCD menu on your printer.
right. But you can do it now. You can do it in a browser. And so how I see that is kind of like it's almost like a tool chest where um, there's a lot of tedium that comes with working with the printer, the calibration, setting it up to work certain ways, setting up scripts in your slicer. Um, and it does make that tedium a bit more optimized. But it's still there. It's just kind of in
Yeah.
one tedious package, I
So I guess
guess.
what we're going with is that Octoprint brings all your tools scattered around your workshop, and it brings them and puts them all into a box.
Hmm.
But now you still got to dig through those tools and pick out the one you need.
Yeah.
I think where we're going with this is that Quinly kind of takes that a step further and says, okay, well now we're actually removing tools that you don't actually need anymore,
Yeah.
because the software is doing that instead.
So it's interesting, like talking to people. A lot of when you use it for the first time, a lot of the feedback are like, oh, why is this missing from
Yeah,
my UI?
yeah.
Like, why can't I jog the print head? And when designing Quinly, and actually when you get into conversations with farms, like talking to you guys, you quickly realize there is a lot of things that you do that don't really have to be done when your printer is automated. For example, jogging the print head um, is only really useful if you're doing some kind of calibration. But if you just want your printer to be running 24/7, um, you don't really need that functionality.
Yeah.
And so our philosophy, like Steven said, when putting Quinly together was to use our own experience as a print farm to really understand what are these key like bottleneck points and how do we automate those, and then how do we remove all the unnecessary tools and noise around it. And I think as makers we do have a somewhat bad habit of collecting tools, just
Yeah.
like
Oh, I have so many now. I actually
yeah.
need a bigger tool chest in my own house because tools are everywhere.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know like how many people have at least two slicers installed on their computer. Like if you're you really shouldn't have more than two slicers. But I
Yeah,
know I have like 5 versions of Cura installed. So
yeah. Well, sometimes I have multiple instances of Cura open at the same time. It's
yeah,
like you need to
to
slice
compare,
7 things at the same time.
I
You
know.
can't just close a project.
So Machine Creators was saying that he got it mainly to avoid SD cards, and that's
Yeah.
that's like one of those things where with Octoprint, at least you can now upload files remotely,
Mhm.
but it doesn't kind of take that all the way where you now just have a bunch of SD cards in your browser.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is, how do you completely eliminate the need for SD cards? And we'll go through, um, our solution for it. And I know there's some, you can actually set up plugins to have set central file repositories, but then you end up going into a whole bunch of configuration stuff where with Quinly, we just knew right away, okay, the whole system, no matter how many printers you have in your farm, needs to be built around not having to run around with SD cards and not starting print jobs. You want to have all your files in one place, automatically sync across all printers, and then a central queue that essentially syncs all the jobs across all printers. And what I mean by that is just there's something that is aware of where all the jobs are going.
Yeah. So instead of just having multiple separate instances that aren't talking to each other, the whole thing is like a cohesive unit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we're also going to be talking later in the stream about sort of things that you don't do right now that you probably should be doing, but you're not because it's too much effort,
Yeah,
right? Like maintenance. You should be maintaining your printers. Do you have a maintenance schedule? Probably not, because it takes a lot of time to do that. Other things like tracking filament, tracking your inventory. These are things that we want to end up doing with Quinly, um, because as an operator, you actually need these statistics to make informed decisions, but actually tracking this stuff takes so much time that it isn't worth it. But when you have computers, you can do all this stuff automatically. So that's kind of the direction that we're
mm-hmm.
we're going to be delving into a little bit more later.
It's actually interesting you mentioned that because I think what from talking with so many print farms, and I'd be curious to know what people in chat, what solutions they've come up with. But even just tracking
Mhm.
inventory is a really big problem for a lot of people
Yeah,
because you don't know because of printing takes so long, you can sometimes have jobs that don't finish until the next day. It's hard to keep track of where jobs are on which printer, and once you have printed jobs, then for like a 1 or 2 person operation, counting all of those prints just takes up way too much time. And even for larger operations, what ends up happening, I think what a lot of people drift to is producing just in time because you don't have to count
yeah.
your inventory.
And well, another thing that happens is you'll just notice that your filament's getting kind of low, and then you'll order more filament.
Yeah.
And depends on how things go, but a lot of times you'll probably end up, requiring some filament that you don't have because you should have ordered it 2 weeks ago, predicting that you'll be needing it sooner.
Hmm.
But it's just hard to do these things without sort of stats and tracking.
Yeah. So I guess what we're trying to illustrate here is um, tools for doing those things exist, but there's not really a kind of seamless integrated solution that operates all of those tools for you. And you'll start to notice a lot of workarounds. Like I noticed when I was just running even just a one printer thing way long ago, I started noticing these strange workarounds I had to deal with, um, in order to make sure I could hit my like order deadlines or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, deadlines were the worst when I was
Yeah.
printing as a service. Like, if someone asked for 40 parts and they were all different and I didn't know, like, I just didn't know how long that would take. It's really hard because you can still slice it and see the time estimates and stuff. And
Hmm.
that's just really hard to actually figure out, like, how do I schedule all these prints? It's gonna maybe take a week, maybe four. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna fail. It's
Yeah.
hard. Um, but yeah, the point is like we're actually aiming our software to be for people who actually want to like are serious about 3D printing, they don't like people who don't print as a hobby or people who don't tinker with their printers, right? So, if you're selling prints, if you have a product, if you're running a business that depends on 3D printed goods, if you have a print farm, this is what we want to be providing Quinly um, for. Like this is who we're trying to provide Quinly for.
Yeah, I think it's people who want to use their printers as a tool to make something,
Yeah.
not people who want to use their printers as a fun project that they upgrade for hundreds of hours and don't actually print anything. Because I know when I got my first printer, that's literally what I would just do all day. I think I spent,
Yeah.
I even kept track of the time. I think I spent like 3 times more time upgrading, calibrating it than actually printing on it.
Yeah.
And right now the printers that are out there are all actually really good for doing that, but it's not very productive.
Yeah.
And so when you have tool sets that are built around this idea of calibrating, like it's not really built around the idea of using the printer as a tool, it's more about making all of that tinkering easier, when really you should be thinking about how to completely remove tinkering from the equation.
Yeah, like I actually think a good analogy is having sort of like Octoprint is your RepRap 3D printer with you can put any part you want into it. It's just that it's up to you to make it work.
Yeah.
And you have to do all the work to make it work. Whereas what we want Quinly to be is something you just plug into the wall and click print. We want it to be as easy as possible just to get things working and to kind of eliminate any sort of tedious or repetitive tasks that come with running a printer, but also the difficulty in setting up a printer and setting up a system that works well for anyone trying to essentially be productive with their printers, to run their printers 24/7 and actually 24/7, not just like 24/7.
Yeah. A machine creator saying he's spending the time during the stream to write his SD cards. Like that's the kind of workarounds and compromises you have to make. Like put on a movie and write 100 SD cards or something like that. Yeah, I can't. It just gets really frustrating to deal with that kind of thing. So yeah, so building a piece of software that lets you use your printer as a tool is kind of going to be the theme of this stream.
Yeah.
And I think so. Maybe we should talk about like where Quinly itself is going.
Yeah. Well, so I guess where we started with Quinly and then also where we're going with
Sure.
Quinly.
Yeah.
Because what we found out over the past like month or so, we've been talking about how our product has evolved. And so in short, it turns out that we're going to have to split Quinly into the Quinly that we have now and then the Quinly that we'll have in the future. So the Quinly that everyone's running right now and the Quinly that, if you have Quinly, you're using it, we're calling that Quinly Lifetime. And it's like the original intention for it was a queue and automatic part removal. And you can upload files and the printer prints and then it ejects the parts and it keeps on doing that. Our future for what we're going to call Quinly 3D is more than just something that can eject parts automatically. It's actually going to be an automation platform for all 3D printers, all FDM 3D printers, with way more tools that'll automate a lot more of the tasks that are associated with running the printer for higher productivity than you'll get with a manual printer. So still automated, we're not getting rid of that, but with a lot more tools. And we're going to get into that with a roadmap that we've come up with over the past few weeks.
Yeah, so I think another interesting thing that you should keep an eye out for is with this direction, we want to be able to support more than just like Quinly supported printers, but try and drop the barrier to automation as low as it can go. which means supporting printers that we currently don't automate. And actually, we're going to be doing a series of live streams talking about how to automate your printer. So whether you're using Quinly or whether you're trying to do it through something like Clipper or Octoprint, we'll be going through the things that we learned and some key ideas that you have to keep in mind when designing an automated printer. So the idea being, like, if there's a printer that Quinly doesn't explicitly support, you can design your own hardware for it, and hook it up and actually automate that printer as well. Because I think where our bread and butter is as a company is definitely the automation software. So if we can work with the community to build open source automation hardware, that would just be perfect, because then we can focus on what we're good at, and the community, which is primarily hardware experts, I think they would say,
Yeah.
can focus on that part of it.
Yeah. So the hardware wasn't nearly as scalable as the software. So when a new printer came out, we'd have to spend, like me and Carlo were spending a whole bunch of time designing and slicing and re-slicing and figuring out that this doesn't work, so you have to do it all over again. It takes a lot of time, and that's just to get one printer working. Whereas the software team will develop a feature, and then that feature works for every printer because it's software, it's Quinly. And it turns out that when we focus more of our efforts on software, that's better for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we're moving away from, well, not moving away completely, but focusing a lot more on the software side of Quinly.
And that's not to say that like things like the vapor bed won't be available. In fact, if there's a large enough community that wants us to support a specific printer and they came to us, we could do custom runs, and help support getting those printers onto an automated system. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Like, I know the Voron community, they're really great at designing hardware, and one of the issues with having such fast printers is that your prints finish really fast. You have to keep running back to the printer. And I think automating them would be really beneficial. So working with groups like that, or and really any printer, to try and get it automated is definitely a future that we want to see.
Yeah. And it's great because we're not bottlenecked by, the 3DQ hardware team only has 24 hours per day.
Right.
And we're not going to be working for 24 hours a day. Quinly's works for 24 hours a day, but
yeah,
I work for 8 hours a day. Yeah. So I guess we should talk a little bit about sort of what we're going to do with the current Quinly product, because we're still going to support this Quinly lifetime product, but we're also going to be sort of tapering off development for that and moving toward Quinly 3D. So maybe we should actually take a look at the roadmap and go through sort of what Quinly does right now, and then how we're going to be sort of upgrading that and automating a lot more things with Quinly 3D.
Sure.
Right. So
yeah, this is a really long roadmap, but we won't go into too much detail. You can pause and read if you want more information, and this will also be going up on our site. But we'll just go like really high level, because as Steven said, our original intention with Quinly was something that handled this tricky transition between parts if you wanted to automate a printer, because it's not quite as simple as like looping your G-code file, unless you're printing the same object over and over again. But we had to build a system that could do small parts, big parts, any order of parts. It's quite complicated, and I think we got to that with Quinly. But yeah, so this is the roadmap.
Cool. So I guess a good way to like look at the structure of this is we're going to start with the manual tasks that Quinly automates. So these are actually like manual labor, like moving your arms and having to, take things off the plate, clean the bed, this stuff. So right at the beginning of any print job, you have you have to dispatch the print job. You have to tell the printer that you want to print a job. And so like Quinly, or like before Quinly, you'd have to actually go to the printer, plug the SD card in, click the button. That's fine. If you want to do it for 100 printers, your life probably isn't very fun.
Yeah, you can, that's why in tools like Octoprint started getting put together, was so that you could
Yeah.
at least do that process from your desktop, like without having to physically walk to the machine. But it didn't get rid of that, that task. It's just
Yeah.
you can do it from your computer now.
And so I guess where we're moving with Quinly is we're going to make that process not just work for a printer, but also for multiple printers connected together, running different bed sizes, different materials, different colors, maybe even different like nozzle sizes, essentially anything. Trying to make that dispatch process smart, so you don't actually have to, say, oh, I want this print to go to that printer, this print to go to that printer. We're actually going to make it so that you just say, this is the print, and these are my printers. Quinly will figure it out. So we're kind of offloading all the decision making onto the software rather than to you.
Yeah. And I think one of the major distinctions that's not super visible from like a front end thing is that in order to make these smart dispatch decisions, or just in general, in order to make smarter choices, something that Quinly does that's kind of unique is it can read in information about your printer, and it actually stores that information so that when if you were to flash your firmware, or if you were to move the printer around the farm, you don't have to set it back up again. You don't have to have a configuration profile for that printer, which is something that you do need for things like Octoprint. Actually, I know, for less technical people, it can actually be quite a challenge if a profile doesn't exist for your specific setup. Like, there's a lot of people sharing profiles online, for
Yeah.
example.
Well, I've been looking into like some of the really hardcore users of Octoprint. Like you almost need like a degree in like networking and
Yeah.
protocols and all this stuff. And I'm like a mechanical engineer, and most of that stuff doesn't even make sense to me. So like
Right. It's
it's a lot of information and a very high barrier to entry, especially if you want to get into more complicated stuff.
yeah, it's like it's actually really complicated to scale. It's really good if you want to dive into those nitty gritty, like technical, configure every little last thing to work exactly how you want it. But then when you try to scale it or replicate it, it becomes really difficult. Um, and so we have the opposite view, where we want something that can adapt to your printers, remember how you set them up, and run it the way that you would run it, basically. And so for that, they're like smart dispatch, memorizing and storing settings, making decisions based off of how you tag certain prints.
Yeah. So actually, I think a good thing to say is on this roadmap, anything labeled coming soon is stuff that will be only available in Quinly 3D. So that's kind of like the distinction between what's in Quinly Lifetime and what's in Quinly 3D. Yeah, and a lot of this stuff is still in the works. So if stuff ends up changing in 2 months, don't come yelling at us. But this is our framework right now that we're working with, and
Yeah.
I finished this yesterday, so like
Okay.
it's not, yeah, it's pretty darn close. This is all I'm saying.
And before you guys get too worried, too, Quinly Lifetime is called Quinly Lifetime for a reason. You won't lose any features. And if you do end up needing things beyond the 24/7 printing for like 25 cents per day, there's actually going to be like a special rate for people to upgrade to the new version of the software. So
If you're currently on Quinly,
yeah,
and yeah, if you want to upgrade your Quinly Lifetime to Quinly 3D, then yeah, you'll get a
yeah.
discounted rate.
Or if you just want to stay on it, you can do that too. So yeah, so that's important to keep in mind. And we'll be phasing out Quinly Lifetime over the next couple weeks. So there's going to be a sale on our site. So if you do want just this, if you want this base version of Quinly there's not much time left to get it. So I would highly recommend you know, getting it soon. And I think we're also going to do discounts for that, just like as a, final goodbye to Quinly lifetime,
Yeah.
where it'll be, if you're getting one like Quinly kit, it'll be $15 off for that one kit. If you get two, it'll be $25 for each kit. So that's $50 off the whole thing. And then if you get three, it'll be $50 off of each of the three. So a total of $150 off.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is the best deal that's ever going to exist
yeah,
for Quinly lifetime. So take advantage of it
yeah.
if that's what you're interested in getting.
It's basically, yeah, it's basically like you're gonna be able to get Quinly for like it works out to being, like 15 to 20 cents a day,
Yeah.
at that discount. Um, Actually, here's a good question too while we're looking at the roadmap. And this is exactly why we want to move to the new system. Quinly for Ender 3 costs twice as much as my printer. Why wouldn't I just buy more printers? Big fan, just food for thought. There are two reasons. One is that buying a second printer doesn't mean that you're going to get twice as many prints, because that second printer is still constrained by your availability. So if I'm working 8 hours a day, instead of having, I now only have 4 hours to deal with each printer because I have more printers. And every time I add a new printer, if I have 4 printers, that gets broken down to 2 hours per printer. And if I get 8 printers, then you start getting in the territory of, I only have an hour to work on each printer. And if my, nozzle broke down, I don't have the 2 hours I need to fix that printer. So now that printer is going to be offline. Whereas with something like Quinly, because it was kind of a single time thing, it actually works out to, like, first of all, it runs your printer for 24 hours a day and 168 hours a week. So you're really getting more than 3x out of the same printer, which, immediately makes it start paying itself off compared to buying a second printer.
Yeah. Well, it's like hiring an assistant for 1 cent per hour
Yeah.
is essentially Quinly. Quinly for Ender 3, Quinly for Prusa. As long as you expect to use Quinly for at least like a few years, it's going to work out to about 1 cent per hour. And you're not going to find anyone that'll work for 1 cent per hour.
Yeah, you have to think about it more as like an assistant rather than an upgrade for like than a piece of hardware, because it's not really a piece of hardware. It's a piece of software that helps you run your machine, um, 24/7.
Yeah, it's like because we get this question a lot, and almost the way that you think about getting Quinly is you're making a one-time investment to never have to do something ever again, right? So if you're serious about printing, meaning if you're planning to do this for a good few years or something, if you can save like 30 minutes per day for 5 years, that's going to be so worth it to you because of all that time adds up so that you can maybe even grow your business or add new products or optimize other aspects of your life.
Yeah, like buying more printers increases your labor burden, and getting Quinly vastly decreases it. In fact, like if you're, if you earn like an engineer's salary, one of these kits ends up paying itself off within a couple days or a couple weeks. So that's the main reason. But what we're doing now is offering this monthly option too, because then that reduces the barrier to entry even further, because now you only have to concern yourself with a month at a time. The rate is still going to be the same. It's less than 25 cents a day, and you are now running your printer at least 3 times more than you would have been otherwise. So that's where this comes from. And we're, like I said, with Quinly 3D, with all of these changes, we're really trying to reduce the barrier to automation invite people to design their own hardware for automation, um, and just get those printers that you do have running more optimally.
Cool. So I see we've started this roadmap. We only covered
Yeah, okay.
one aspect. Let's keep going
Let's
through it.
blast through it.
And yeah, so just talking about some things. If you guys have Quinly, you know that the vapor bed is really good. Everyone wants the vapor bed. Um, we were putting vapor bed in this pre-print area because it doesn't require isopropyl alcohol before every print, or it doesn't require acetone every 10 prints. You know, as long as you don't rub your fingers all over it, you don't need to clean the bed pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, like all the pre-print tasks that you would normally have to do, you don't have to do, right? Because you can set up a queue of prints and they'll just print off one by one. You don't need to do stuff before every print. And I guess just to maybe briefly cover the unlevel and warped bed check, which is the coming soon. That's actually going to be in Quinly Lifetimes. That's a mistake.
That's actually included already.
Warped
bed is in there.
Yeah, I think also unlevel, we're gonna maybe
That's
make it a bit more obvious that it's included.
Yeah.
Because right now you wouldn't know unless you have a warped or unlevel bed.
Yeah, that should be checked.
But the point there is we don't want you scratching your vapor beds. We don't like having to replace beds. We don't make money on replacing vapor beds. We're not a print bed business. You know, we sell automation and we want people to have great success with automation. When your bed gets scratched, that just messes things up for everyone. So we're trying to make everything, you know, I guess reduce any chance for bed scratching is kind of where we're going with this.
Yeah, reducing the maintenance you need to do to your printer.
Yeah, and that's kind of a bunch of these pre-print features are all designed around avoiding having to deal with your print bed and avoiding printer damage.
Yeah, just so you can confidently start a print, even if the print might not go well. It'll minimize the amount of damage that happens to your printer, because it is very easy to just destroy a printer if you haven't calibrated it right. So having something that does all of those checks for you at the beginning is really important.
Yeah, and as we're going down, there's probably going to be some text that you don't actually know what is this. Like I didn't know this was in Quinly. Let us know, because some of these features are actually not really exposed in the Quinly dashboard UI. Like some of these error messages, like if your z-axis is out of alignment, you won't know that your Prusa auto-calibrates your z-axis if it has a problem, but it does. But yeah, so there's a few features in Quinly that, actually a lot of features in Quinly that are kind of under the hood, but we're talking about them here. So if there's anything that doesn't really kind of make sense, or you want more info, ask about it in chat.
Yeah, or if there's other stuff you'd like to see too. Like, because you can set up you can get these warnings with other stuff, but we've spent a really long time working with these printers, making sure that we can integrate as much as possible to prevent them from damaging themselves. So yeah, so we also have mid-print stuff.
So this is mainly making sure that your print is going well, and if it's not going well, that you can do something about it. Yeah, and we've got Quinly Vision in here. I guess a good note on this is you see Fire Vision. What is Fire Vision? You've got Spaghetti Vision, Fire Vision. Well, where's Quinly Vision? So what we're gonna do for I guess for now is provide spaghetti detection on essentially every tier of Quinly, every Lifetime and Quinly 3D. Everyone gets spaghetti detection and fire and smoke detection. And we haven't really talked about fire and smoke detection, but that's going to be something that we try to include sooner than later. But yeah, just essentially making sure that if your print's going, that it's going well, and if something bad's happening, that the print is stopping.
Yeah, it's kind of the minimum. We see it as the minimum that you need to for something that's supposed to run 24/7. You should have some way of stopping catastrophic events from
Hmm.
making a big mess with your printer. And we think that it needs to be fully packaged and fully integrated with any sort of automation tool. And like we'll discuss in later streams, this is something you can try and put together with things like Spaghetti Detective and Octoprint. Um, but you have to be really careful to make sure the integration is done right. And, you know, with things like Quinly Vision, we can make sure that there is commercial level like security around the software. So yeah, so that stuff like people printing on other people's printers doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Which can sometimes be the case, like with community developed software. There can sometimes be security holes, whereas with the stuff that we're working on, it needs to physically secure your printer, and then the software itself needs to be secured, so that only you can access your printer.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about like user accounts and stuff in a bit. We're getting to it. I guess the last bit, we kind of know how this goes. Post print, I guess post print, these are both new features, but custom NG code, if you have something specific you want your printer to do, you can tell it to do that. And part removal confirmation, that'll be in the new Quinly 3D because we're going to support printers that are manual. So printers that don't actually have automation yet, because every printer can have automation. Printers that don't have automation yet, you can have this manual part removal confirmation so that the printer will just wait for you to remove the part, just like normal.
Yeah. And the idea behind that being that, as you're automating more and more of your farm, you should not have to resort to multiple systems for different printers, which you kind of have to do now. It's if you want to bring all printers into the same system, there's a lot of configuration required to do that. And that kind of goes against what we want to do with Quinly. So we're going to be adding this manual mode that allows you to connect manual printers and still get all the benefits of the shared queue and the shared file system on all printers in your farm, or even just all printers in general, because there's still a lot of benefit to having, even if your printer is not automated, a lot of these other features can be very useful.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of like what we're trying to do with this new software is make Quinly, I guess, the best software for running multiple printers and running, I guess, printers for productivity, whether they're manual or automated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Will Quinly Pro integrate multiple systems in one UI? Yeah, for sure. That's the main focus of the Pro beta is putting multiple systems into one UI. And actually, it's not on here, but the new versions of Quinly, like Quinly 3D, I guess, they all have remote access.
Yes.
So you'll be able to remote into those printers, and then the tiers like the Pro tier, you would have remote access to multiple pies, and
like they'll all be wired
all
together.
show in one UI. Yeah.
Not physically wired together, but
through your account.
internet connected together.
Yeah, network together.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess to finish off the first section of this, we have part removal and bed clearing. If you have Quinly, you're familiar with this, but automatic part removal, we're adding some customizable features to it so that it will work for every printer.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, if you have a weird printer that needs
weird,
maybe you need like some white to go the other way, or
yeah,
you just got like a circular bed, or it's a delta, or like some weird, I don't know, maybe you built your own printer and it has like a triangle bed.
right.
You can write any G code that you want so that the wipe will happen in the way that you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've got like an extendo arm that comes down and wipes stuff off.
Yeah,
You can still do that too. It's just G code, so whatever your firmware accepts, you can send it.
Yeah, I guess you can for any printer, if you try to automate it yourself, you can develop your own custom routine for it. I guess one of the drawbacks of that is that it won't necessarily like adapt in the same way it might with when you're using Vapor.
Mm.
But
Yeah, because it's up to you to
because
make
it's
sure that it works.
this one would be fixed between each print. So yeah, it's up to you to test it and make sure it works for the type of printer you put it perfectly.
And good to know this will work with belt printers too.
Yeah.
So if you need more than just an infinite loop of the same part over and over, if you want the queuing, if you want the stats, if you want, the centralized features of Quinly, and you have a belt printer, if you have multiple belt printers, you can still get a lot more productivity out of your farm uh, with this. So I'm excited for that. I want to see who is the first person to use Quinly on a belt printer.
I think it'll be Jack.
It'll probably be Jack.
Yeah.
He's not here though.
Oh
But
yeah. So everyone gets a 3 week head start on him.
yeah, yeah. So if anyone here has a belt printer, you can be first.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. But it'll be pretty cool. Like just maybe your Jico gets printed on like a Prusa, or maybe it gets sent to the. I guess you couldn't. It wouldn't work that way because belt printers need special G code.
Yes.
So you
Yeah,
have
you
to
have to have
tag
it as
all
a
the
belt
belt
tag.
printer. Yeah,
Hmm.
which you can do because there are tags in Quinly. So you could even have it say, okay, this is a belt part. Send it only to the belt printer.
Yeah, actually, this tagging system is incredibly powerful. Yet it's hard to find a name for the tagging system. So if you guys have any ideas what it should be, let us know. I think right now this is if you scroll to the very top, I think
I think it's just called tag.
it's called no ta Smart Tag Matching Job Allocation,
Oh, okay.
which kind of tells you what it does, but it's a very big mouthful of words.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things are we have to come up with a name for these features because we had working names, but we didn't actually have like an outward facing name for all these features that are in Quinly. So
It's actually
yeah.
when developing, it's so hard to uh, discuss things because we're like, what is that? What is this thing called? I'm like, the thing that matches the tags.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll be good. Maybe once you come up with like a consistent naming convention for these things, it'll
Yeah.
help us develop it better.
Even like for multi-printer hub, we were getting confused between different versions of it
Mm.
until we finally settled on, and this was because Al started using it, but we finally settled on like MPH denoted that it was a multi-printer hub. Um, otherwise, yeah, it's really hard to communicate when you don't have, these are all new features. We have to come up with names for them.
Mm. Well, Q tag. So I think
This is kind of smart
maybe Q tag.
because it is tag that dictates how the queue works.
I guess Q tag TM. I guess
Right, right.
that's probably because
We have
yeah,
to pay royalties to Jeff.
yeah. We probably almost need like a whole thing explaining how to use this tag because it's like you
Yeah,
can't just say in one word how to use this incredibly powerful feature. It's like explaining Photoshop in one sentence. Like you can't cover everything.
yeah. Well, you photo editing stuff. There's just so much you can do with this that it's hard to come up with a name that tags is probably a really bad name too because it's like what is a tag? What does that mean?
Yeah. All right. So we get into so that we just covered the what was it? The manual labor tasks associated with the 3D printing process.
Hmm.
Now we're moving on to farm specific, or maybe not farm specific, but like scalable tasks that are all kind of farm specific.
It's like things. These are all things that get worse with more printers.
Yes, and things that are inefficient for a human to do, so you just don't do it. But now that you have software and automation, you can do these things. So I guess just looking at this kind of as a like zooming out a little bit, giving you tools to look at your print farm and be able to tell at a glance, I need more filament, or I need to maintain my printers, or my inventory on this part is running low, better queue this, better queue these up. Things that are hard to track, because how do you know how much filament you have unless you actually measure it? And a lot of people don't measure it. But if you have software where that's automatically being tracked, then you don't need to measure it.
And like a lot of people will say, oh, well, my printer measures how much filament length it uses. But sure, it's measured somewhere, but then you have to go to each printer at every day or every week and calculate the differences coming from each printer. And that kind of thing is really annoying to do. And I mean, in fact, a lot of people don't do it that way. They just base it off of how much their inventory is depleting. So getting precise measurements is very difficult. I would say the other thing that's really key for all of these features that we spend a really long time working on is config-free setup for new printers, no matter if they are, no matter what type of printers they are. So you don't want to, every time you add a new printer, you don't want to have to configure a million things, configure the networking for it, set up a new Pi. I feel like the reason we see so many uniform print farms is because it just makes that a little bit easier. But with this, we want to so that you can just plug in a printer and it will recognize it, ID it, store any settings that you have for it, and understand immediately what types of jobs it can and can't accept.
Yeah, so like when you plug a printer into Quinly, I guess the holy grail would be you plug it in and then it pulls, it adds tags to your printer like it's a Prusa. It's got this size bed, this build height. You know, it's maybe got even this size nozzle if you can read that.
Yeah.
Prusa's you can, and I don't know about other printers, but the ability to like pull all the information you possibly can from your printer, from the firmware, so that you don't have to manually enter it for every printer.
Yeah, so this stuff that you see on coming soon here, if you're in the pro beta, this is actually stuff you'll get to try very soon, which is exciting.
Bed level over time. So this is almost predictive maintenance for your farm. So hey, your bed's drifting, better check it out. Maybe you've got a screw that's loose, or maybe you need to do something.
And with everything here, this is not stuff that you'll ever have to configure or enter numbers for. Quinly will automatically do that stuff for you. So yeah, we talked about film and track. Order tracking is a bit interesting. This is more for if you're producing for someone else or if you just want to track things better internally. Instead of sending a print job as a print job, you can actually create orders that correspond to maybe a customer order. And if that order has many pieces, you want to be able to track all those pieces in one spot. So this kind of thing is very important because this is something that everyone does track when they're printing for others, but the method in which people have described like how they track it varies so much. Like it can be something like a spreadsheet. It can be trying to rely on Shopify's statuses or trying to rely on Etsy's statuses.
Scrolling through messages,
yeah,
finding history, like, oh, I want it in black. Yeah, okay.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Memorizing stuff. I mean, people just, there's
that's not good. Yeah.
Can't rely on your memory.
Like we've seen things like physical ticket systems where you like write down what part is being printed and people like put it physically, stick it next to the printer that's printing that part and what order number it's from, and then you have to manually go and collect all those pieces together and you don't know whether they're done or not. Order tracking is very, I think there's so many people printing for Etsy and printing products, and I think order tracking specifically built for 3D printing is definitely lacking.
Or non-existent.
Like I know we try to use something called Katana, but it doesn't track like the correct states that comes from production on 3D printers. It tracks like shipping and receiving. So we want to build something that will help automate those aspects of your business or of your production as well, and a tool that's actually built for 3D printing.
Yeah, and the thing about Katana is we still have to count the parts and manually enter data into this
Yeah,
software. It's not connected to Quinly.
it's not
separate.
integrated. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it leads us nicely into the next section here. E-commerce tools is actually using or integrating Quinly and Etsy or Quinly and Shopify, so that when someone places an order, it just puts that order right into Quinly, and the holy grail is just someone places an order, and if you have a printer with the right material loaded, it just starts printing,
Hmm.
and you don't have to do anything to even start that. So that's our future. Looking forward specifically for people on online stores selling prints, or even if you're in a physical store, um, or if you use 3D prints in parts of your product, but not the entire product, like maybe packaging. Some people use it for packaging. If someone places an order for your, drone, and you need to print like 7 parts for it, all those parts will be queued up with the right materials set up. All you have to do is make sure the printer is ready and hit print, or maybe it'll
Or
start printing automatically.
maybe you can. I think we'll toggle that. You can toggle it.
Yeah, it'll be a
If
toggle.
you're feeling cool, you can have it auto pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is also stuff we'll be testing in in the pro beta before it becomes available to everyone. So that's
Well, a lot of these features are going to be in beta.
Yeah.
Like I think every feature is
Right,
probably
every
going to be in
feature is
beta.
going to be in beta.
before
But I'm
it's
saying
available.
these ones are going to be in the pro beta. So if you want to try them, make sure you're in the pro beta.
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff in here. Secure remote management. So moving from scaling your farm and scaling tasks that are very hard to do manually, or tedious to do manually. Now we're doing secure remote management, which is accessing your printer or print farm from anywhere and still having all the tools that you normally have if you were right there. So I guess the big thing coming is user accounts, and that's kind of been a long time coming. With password protection too, a lot of people work with a whole bunch of other people in the same area, but they don't necessarily want people just being able to type in an IP and be able to access the printer. So we're going to have password protection as part of this. Yeah, Mateo, you've been working on this a lot more than I have. Why don't you just give us a little overview of what you've got planned?
Yeah, well, it's like in organizations with multiple people, you might want to have multiple users accessing a farm, but with their own credentials, so you can see who did what. But just to start out with, we're using these accounts as another way to secure your printers, and it's actually also will be used to network printers together. So all you'll have to do to network printers together is log in to the same account on multiple Pis, and then they'll know that both of these printers are owned by the same person, and they'll just start working together. So that's really cool. I think that was the easiest way we could come up with a secure way for Pis to network with one another, and it's very easy on your end because you just need to log in on each one of those things.
Yeah, and I guess just touching on the coming soon one here, mobile UI, that'll also probably just be in Quinly Lifetime too. Quinly 3D and Quinly Lifetime, essentially just making the UI kind of responsive to mobile devices so that you don't have to like zoom in and zoom out to click stuff.
Yeah, I actually use Quinly almost more often on my phone than I do on the desktop. So it's something that so many people ask for too. Like they might have a tablet at the in the farm, or you don't want to have to walk. It's almost like how you don't want to walk to a printer to deal with it. You don't want to have to walk to a computer to manage your printer. So being able to do it from your phone is going to be important.
Yeah, and since there's ideally not too many interactions that you'll need to do in Quinly, we're reducing the number of interactions, so it actually will make more sense to have it as kind of a mobile friendly layout. Okay, this next one's pretty pretty huge actually. I'm really looking forward to these features, but essentially time lapse and digital inspection, um, giving you tools to see your print live, see your print, like a recording of your print, and the various important moments within a print. Um, so, for example, the beginning of a print, we're thinking of recording the first layer, so you can see if the first layer goes wrong, what went wrong. And then also during the print, when our spaghetti vision, fire detection, and Quinly vision is actually set up and working, it'll record a section of the print where the failure is detected, um, and also be able to, I guess, tell you when that happens, send you notifications. Um, and I guess the one I really wanted was the part removal recording. The hardest thing is actually catching the parts getting pushed off by Quinly because it doesn't tell you that it's about to do it; it just does it. Um, so I want to see, hey, how is my part actually getting removed? Is maybe a part got stuck, and I want to figure out actually how it got stuck. Sometimes on the enders they like slope downwards, but the parts actually come they actually somehow become behind the printer. Like, how did that end up happening? I really wanted to see the
Right.
weird edge cases that sometimes crop up in this. And so that's how we're solving that problem. And these time lapses will be easily downloadable. You know, your SD card, as long as there's space for it, they'll put the time lapses in. Maybe they'll automatically delete the oldest ones. Um, I'm just really looking forward to time lapses.
Yeah. But it's actually going to be really important to for when people are developing their own hardware, because if something goes wrong on an automated system, the whole point is you don't want to be constantly monitoring it yourself. So it'll be important for it to record things that might go wrong, and that's what like the first layer and the part removal are going to be key for um, if you are developing your own hardware, making sure that it works consistently. This will be really good for troubleshooting, um, and also would be really good for just in general if you're printing, doing inspection. So one of the other things is the automatic end of print photo can give you a photo of the final print job in your history, so that you can check like if you suddenly have a bunch of weird parts. You can go and find out which job it was that didn't print correctly, and see, was there something wrong with it before it got cleared off the bat.
And this will be added to the job history,
Yeah.
which is coming very soon.
Yeah, everything that's checked is actually done.
Mhm.
So that's coming out in the next update. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot coming in this next update.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So print monitoring tools. So yeah, I guess these are more live, like real time, right in the moment tools. So time lapses after things happen. Print monitoring tools is looking at it right now. So of course we have, live temperature, print progress. Um, the thing I'm kind of looking forward to is actually having notifications built in. So if there was a print that you really were waiting on and you wanted to be notified when it finished, you could say, yeah, let me know. Um, have this hooked up to filament run out. So if your filament runs out, send you a text or a notification of some sort. And then also things like multi-print or queue time estimates. So being able to not just send one print and know when that one print is finishing, but being able to schedule like 20 prints and knowing when those are going to be finished, taking into account cooldown time, heat up time, and the actual printing. So I'm looking forward to that. I think those will be useful for people who are maybe monitoring their print farm, but you have to keep on checking back to make sure stuff is working properly. You don't need to keep checking back because it'll tell you when it's ready. So I don't know, my engineer brain, it's like the difference between an interrupt versus polling. If that makes sense to you,
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah, interrupt versus that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, definitely not have to keep things in the back of your mind that cause anxiety and stress. Um, yeah. This will be very nice too. And it'll be integrated with everything as well. So um, I think for the notification menu, you'll be able to set up notifications for any kind of state change in the system. Um, and that's important because that can be really difficult to do if you're using an ensemble of plugins that might not communicate with one another um, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to intuitive job management and reporting. So this set of features is kind of like the organizational aspects of running printers and running a print farm. Um, so starting off, we have file management that actually makes sense. It's not just SD cards.
Yeah.
Like this is what we were talking about in the beginning. You just have one place with all your files. You don't have to like update all your printers to get new SD or new files. Um, you don't have to worry about version control because when you update one file, that's the only instance of that file on your whole print farm, so it'll be updated. Yeah, just the ability to do kind of bulk tasks with your files. So you can move a whole bunch of files into a folder, you can download or delete or upload. Kind of everything that you'd normally do in a file system, you can do with all your files at the same time. So avoiding all this micromanaging, avoiding all this repetitive menial task behavior that you have to do.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if it's in this section or somewhere else, but specifically, this is G-code file management. So there will be some operations that you can do, like bulk processing G-codes. Like let's say you had to adjust all the temperatures for a certain set of G-code. You wouldn't have to reslice every single one of those files. You could just edit them in here in bulk. So there's some like G-code specific features put in this as well.
Yeah, like temperatures, even like speed,
Flow
first
rates.
layer print speed.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. You'll be able to edit it in the file manager. So you don't have to find the STL and the profile and reslice it. And I think that is definitely something that a lot of people run into. I mean, even some of the farms that you're talking to now are like very hesitant to reslice parts if they don't have to because you might have dozens or hundreds of different parts in your inventory, and finding all the source files and finding all the profiles you used to make small changes is a huge hassle.
Yeah.
And when people are tuning prints, oftentimes like tuning them for new filament, for example, oftentimes all you're really touching are those basic things like temperatures and flow rates and stuff like that. So G-code specific file management. And then of course there's the print queue, which is what drives everything. This is like a centralized queue that you'll be able to edit, drag and drop. You'll be able to kind of pre-queue things. So like if you get an order but you don't have a printer set up, you can still queue those items, and then when a printer comes online, it'll grab them.
Or when you change to like the right color filament for that job.
Yeah.
And you update that, it'll begin printing those jobs.
So again, like taking a lot of those tasks that would have been done over long periods of time, like many small steps, allowing you to bulk them together and just do it all at once, and then not have to think about it anymore. Because presently you can only send like in farm management software, you can only really send jobs to printers that are there, and you kind of have to remember what jobs you weren't able to send. So with this, you won't have to do any of that.
Yeah, and just to talk about the coming soon one here, custom G-code groups. This one was actually a problem that we ourselves faced in our own print farm, because we wanted to be able, because we have Quinly kits, and these have, like 4 to like 15 parts that we print per kit, and they're all different G-code files, right? So we need to be able to say, I want P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, P6, and I want them to go through that sequence every single time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. And the only way to do that was actually to manually add each one to the queue and then do that again and again. And that was really annoying. So if you have like a kit, or if you have multiple items, rather G-code files that you always print together in a sequence, you can group them together so that they all print in sequence multiple times in a row. So it's getting rid of that tedious task of having to do one of this, one of that, one of this, one of that, one of this. So I'm looking forward to that feature a lot because it'll make printing so much easier.
And then there's just a whole section about stats that help you run your print farm. I think these are all pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, just I guess big picture style. You're not tracking any of this right now, probably, because it takes way too much effort to track any of this. And you want to optimize your print farm, probably. And the only way to optimize something is to begin to measure it and track it over time. So we're giving you the tools to optimize your print farm, giving you data that you wouldn't have otherwise collected right at your fingertips. And you can see a lot of this is coming soon, but a lot of the functionality is actually built into Quinly in the back end. It's just not exposed yet. We need to put it into graphs and in a way that makes sense to people, and that's not trivial. So coming soon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to know, like, there are tools for tracking this kind of thing, but this is designed more around automation and production. Yeah, Steph says stats are important. What gets measured gets done. If you're not measuring anything, I guess nothing gets done. So
you can get only so far based on gut instinct and feel.
Yeah, actually, there are lots of people we've talked to where we ask them, like, what is the uptime of your farm? And they say, well, when I'm at the farm, about 2/3 of the printers are running, so that should be around 60%.
When you're at the farm.
Yeah, when I'm there observing it, and that's the issue with tracking things that way, is when you're not there, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Overnight, are any printers printing at all? And how do you track that? So that's why this is very important. And a lot of these stats are going to be built around how to optimize your automation, because you gain so much uptime just by automating the printer that these other smaller optimizations start to become important. I think it's important to know that going at it the other way around is not really useful. Like, if changing your print settings results in a 10% increase in speed, or, like, I guess 10% increase in uptime, you might still be losing 60% of your uptime to just not having automated printers. In fact, you can even make your uptime worse by making your prints faster, which is really counterintuitive. But that's why we want to show these stats so that people understand, like, oh, this is, I'm actually, like, losing so much time in these really small things.
Or it's like, oh, my printers were running 100% of the time, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah,
not 24/7 like a lot of people think they are.
Exactly. Like, so, if I get all 10 printers running by the time I leave, then I must be getting 100% uptime, which is not true. So that kind of stuff is important too, from, like, a tracking perspective, and also a bit about an educational perspective, because I think a lot of people just don't even have time to think about these things.
Yeah. Well, also some of this is also going to be useful to figure out how much Quinly has actually changed your life. Like, you're going to see your uptime stats go from, like, this little line down here to, like, a big line up here. It's like, oh wait, this is actually making a huge difference. And you can actually evaluate, what you want to do with Quinly in the future. Do you want to get 20 more printers and, get Quinly Pro and get them all together because it's worth it, because you can actually track these things and make informed decisions on what your farm needs and what it doesn't.
So easy setup and troubleshooting. That's, I think everyone that's used Quinly knows that you plug it in and it will connect and auto configure itself. Um, there aren't very many settings or actually there are no settings that you need to get started with printing. Um, but there are things that you can change, like for the time lapse, really, you can edit some stuff to make it work the way you want it to. Um, but yeah, so that
Yeah, very little or nothing needs to be touched to get started.
nothing needs to be touched to print 24/7. But you can customize things.
Yeah, and the time-lapse defaults are already pretty good. So
Yeah, they're made so that they work for every printer, but you can change stuff if you want. And so something that's important with this auto config is also if you do make changes, you don't want those changes to be lost if you update software or if you update the printer firmware. So you'll be able to back up your configs to the cloud, and because every printer that connects to Quinly is given a unique ID, you'll be able to have settings move with the printer. So if you update its firmware or if you shut it off and plug it in somewhere else, you'll be able to, it'll either pick up the settings on its own or you'll be able to recover the settings you had for it.
Yeah, and I think as more people start adding new printers to this software, we're going to work together with them to have auto configure settings for those printers. So if there's a new cool printer that just drops and everyone's trying to automate it, we're going to make that configuration process as automated as possible.
Yeah.
So that's going to be one thing that we work with the community to build. Okay, on to printer calibration tools. So these are little helpful tools that help you calibrate your printer. So these are in Octoprint. So we also want to have these things in Quinly. Essentially, G-code console, just send commands. Assisted filament load and unload. So this is when you'd rather just click a button and then go to your printer so you can change the filament. Make that as easy as possible. Making that one button click instead of 3 button clicks and then waiting and then another button click. It just helps make the process a bit easier.
Yeah, and actually one of the maybe interesting thing to know, the reason we didn't put these in to start with is that with the automation with Vapor, they're mostly unnecessary, especially the bed level visualizer, because the bed never really gets moved when the parts are removed. Like you're not taking a bed off and you're not scraping against a build surface, and so you don't have to level very often. But as we're now going to more and more printers, that starts to become more important, especially as people develop their own solutions. And yeah, things like the filament load and unload too, you could do that from the LCD already. So it didn't seem like a super necessary feature, but these are kind of quality of life things that we're planning to add.
Yeah, and I guess for a bed level visualizer, people are going to try Quinly on like huge printers probably, and you want to know if your bed's warped.
Yeah.
Maybe there's not a lot you can do about that unless you get a glass bed maybe. But it's good to know these things just in case you're having problems and you don't know why. So, yeah, and then we get these the fun stuff, the community. We're all part of this community that we've created for people who like to print a lot of things. So of course, everyone always has access to the Discord community. You can always request features. We're always open to that. All new features are going to be beta tested before getting released to the general public. So if you want to get early access to features, you can sign up to be a beta tester. You can go to our website and there's an email list. And of course, we're doing a weekly live stream right now. So
right now.
Yeah, you don't need to like go somewhere else. You're already here.
Yeah.
But if you're watching this like at some other time, so in the future, or come on to the live stream and chat with us. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice having live feedback on whatever we're saying. So, turn it into a conversation kind of. And then moving on to support. Of course, we've always had Discord support, live staff support. Vapor replacement policy is not going away. It's still going to exist. Essentially, if you have a vapor bed, you'll be able to replace it. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically it.
And if it doesn't work for any reason, we'll replace it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Video call support for uh, anyone who really needs it.
Yeah.
And that's everything. So,
That is everything.
so
That was a lot of things.
when doing this, it turns out that Quinly has a ton of features, and it's we should have done this earlier probably, but like actually listing them all out gives me a lot of a better picture of okay, what do we actually have here,
Mhm.
and where do we want to take it? Because it's just hard to keep so much stuff in your head, and especially since a lot of these things aren't directly exposed in the UI because you don't need to know a lot of these things. You know, it just helps to get a better picture of what Quinly actually is. So
Yeah, these are all things that uh, you would have to do otherwise if you are running manually. And it can be either like it's something that you have to do frequently, or it's something that takes a lot of work to set up. So a lot of this stuff ends up being managed for you.
yeah, so hopefully you can see that we're trying to go a slightly different direction than Octoprint, and instead of being um, pretty good at everything but not great at any one specific thing, we're trying to be very good at automation, very good at providing tools for people who want to get the most out of their printers, and giving so people that are actually printing for profit, giving them tools that actually allow them to run their whole farm efficiently and uh, you know save more of their time so that they can actually spend their time on useful things like marketing and sales and things that actually uh, you know push the needle forward instead of just the menial tasks that drag you down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is all built to save you time, and we'll talk about in future streams. We'll talk about how if you're setting up an automated printer, what all the things you have to consider are, because either you can save a ton of time doing this, or you can also, depending on what trade-offs are more valuable to you, you can try developing uh, your own system, and then we'll talk about like what has to be included in an automated system for it to work properly. um, yeah, so hopefully this gives you an overview of where we are and where we're going. And then just to reiterate as well, so there's going to be a sale on the current Quinly lifetime, which is uh, for one kit $15, for two kits $50, and for three kits $150 off the total. That's going to be the best deal ever on Quinly, and it'll also be kind of the last Quinly lifetimes you can get, and then we'll be moving over to this new system. And anyone who does already have Quinly lifetime will obviously be able to continue using it no problem into the future. There will be stability updates, and some of these features we talked about will be in a update soon. And then if you do end up wanting to at some point in the future, if you want to upgrade, maybe to get the fire detection and the spaghetti vision, Quinly lifetime users will all get a discount on that.
Yeah, well, I think the big ones are they're actually getting fire and spaghetti
Okay.
in lifetime, but remote management, the
Right.
ability to connect multiple printers to a Pi, and then a lot of these stats and tracking info, and quite a lot more. We're going to go into the details on sort of breaking things down a bit more on like what different products are we going to offer in the coming weeks. That's going to be on next week's live stream, talking about how we're going to support automation on all printers, not just the ones that we currently do. Yeah, like I think that's pretty much it. Though.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, this is pretty exciting. Really curious to hear how people start using this new type of Quinly. And yeah, well, I guess we'll meet you back here next week, where we'll be talking about this, and we'll be talking about, um, you know, building your own automation hardware.
Yeah, very cool. I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Yeah,
This is going to be
we
our,
both have long weekends.
we both have long weekends.
Canada and the U.S.
Yeah. And our Carlo is getting married on this weekend, so we're all going to his wedding.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Carlo. That's going to be very fun. He's actually going on a bit of a honeymoon trip for a couple weeks, so we'll be taking over for him for a few weeks, but certainly be rejuvenated when he's back and hopefully
Yeah.
enjoying the sun. He's going in Italy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, apparently the humidity there is 0.
Really? It's
Yeah.
that dry?
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
average
gosh.
temperature is like 36 degrees, so
Okay, that's not that bad then, though.
he's gonna be warm, but
36 and
it's not like crazy.
Bob says, I like the idea and the path to help the farms.
That's great.
That's exactly where we want to go. Help put farms together, make them more optimized. And yeah, when Carlo comes back, he's gonna come back to different Quinly.
Yeah, things are gonna be looking a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still gonna be providing hardware, so vapor beds and tilt kits, tilt brackets, and all the ramps and components. But we're also going to be giving the option for you to print your own. So we're making the hardware a bit more modular and the software also separate. So you can choose the software you want, you can choose the hardware that you want. Maybe you don't even want any hardware. You don't need any hardware to get the software. So that's really reducing the barrier for entry. And you don't need to wait for your kit to arrive because there's nothing to arrive. It's just you just download the file.
You get started right away. Yeah. I guess the best example of that would be like people that use belt printers.
Yeah, that actually would be very plug and play, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It would probably take them like 10 minutes to set it up.
Yeah.
Cool. That's gonna be interesting. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you next week. Make sure to catch us this Sunday on 3D Musketeers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's gonna be fun too. Yeah, we'll see you. I guess we'll see you on Sunday, and then we'll see you on Wednesday again.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
All right.
See ya, everyone.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.